Have you ever wondered if someone you know could be a sociopath? A question that might sound like it's straight out of a thriller movie, yet it's a topic that has intrigued psychologists and researchers for years. Sociopathy, a term often used interchangeably with antisocial personality disorder, is a condition characterized by a disregard for the feelings of others, a lack of remorse or shame, manipulative behavior, unchecked egocentricity, and the ability to lie in order to achieve one's goals. This definition, as per the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or DSM-5, is the cornerstone of understanding this complex condition. However, it's not as simple as ticking off a checklist. What makes sociopathy so fascinating, and indeed so contentious, is the ongoing debate about its origins. Is it a product of nature or nurture? The nature argument suggests that sociopathy is a result of genetic factors. This perspective posits that certain genes, or combinations thereof, can predispose an individual to develop sociopathic tendencies. It's the idea that your DNA could potentially set you on a path towards this condition. On the other hand, the nurture argument asserts that sociopathy is a result of environmental factors. Traumatic experiences, particularly during childhood, such as abuse or neglect, can significantly shape an individual's personality and potentially lead to the development of sociopathic traits. In reality, it's likely a combination of both. Genes may lay the groundwork, but environmental factors can influence whether these genetic tendencies are expressed or remain dormant. But it's essential to remember that having sociopathic tendencies doesn't necessarily mean that someone is a sociopath. It's a spectrum, and where one falls on it can vary greatly based on a myriad of factors. To better understand, let's dive into the key characteristics of a sociopath. The first sign to look out for is a lack of empathy. Now, empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. It involves recognizing emotions that are not your own, and more importantly, being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. It's a fundamental aspect of human connection, allowing us to form bonds and relate to each other on a deep level. And yet, this is where sociopaths often stumble. Their inability to empathize means they struggle to connect with others on an emotional level. It's not that they can't recognize emotions, rather, they just don't feel them the same way most people do. They may understand that you're sad or upset, but they won't feel any urge to comfort you. Instead, they may remain indifferent or even exploit your emotional state for their own benefit. This lack of empathy can manifest in various ways. Let's consider a few examples. Imagine you're sharing a personal story, pouring your heart out. Most people would respond with understanding or compassion. A sociopath, however, might seem disinterested, distracted, or even amused. Their response, or lack thereof, can feel cold and disconnected. Another example could be in the way they react to tragic news. While most of us would feel sorrow or shock, a sociopath may remain unaffected. They might even make inappropriate comments or jokes, seemingly oblivious to the gravity of the situation. This behavior can be quite unsettling, making those around them feel uncomfortable or even hurt. It's important to note that this lack of empathy is often coupled with a high degree of charm and charisma. Sociopaths can be quite likable and engaging, which makes their lack of empathy even more confusing and difficult to detect. They can mimic empathy, pretending to care or understand, but their actions often reveal their true feelings, or rather, the lack thereof. A lack of empathy is a hallmark of sociopathy, but it's not the only sign. So while it's a critical indicator, it's important to remember that this characteristic alone does not necessarily point to sociopathy. There are other signs and behaviors to consider, which we'll delve into in the next scenes. Another key trait of a sociopath is manipulative and deceptive behavior. Now, this isn't your run-of-the-mill fibbing. It's a sophisticated, calculated web of deceit spun to serve their own interests. Sociopaths are adept at reading people, identifying their desires, fears, and insecurities. They exploit these vulnerabilities with remarkable precision, subtly guiding their victims' actions and decisions. It's like they're playing a game of chess, always thinking several moves ahead, ensuring they maintain control. Their manipulation isn't always overtly malicious. Sometimes they'll play the victim or the hero, depending on what the situation requires. They mold their persona to fit the narrative that best serves their goals. It's akin to a chameleon changing its colors, blending in seamlessly with the environment. They're also masters of deception. A sociopath can lie with such conviction that it's almost impossible to distinguish fact from fiction. Their stories are often intricate and detailed, designed to sway even the most skeptical minds. But here's the kicker. They do all this without a shred of guilt or remorse. Their lack of empathy allows them to manipulate and deceive without any emotional backlash. Unraveling their web of deceit can be challenging, as their tactics are often deeply ingrained and subtle. It requires keen observation and an understanding of their behavior patterns. Manipulative and deceptive behavior can be a clear indication of sociopathy, but there's more. So stick around as we delve deeper into the mind of a sociopath in the upcoming sections. Impulsivity and irresponsibility are also common traits of sociopaths. A sociopath's life is often characterized by a series of rash decisions made without a second thought for the potential fallout. It's like they're in a constant game of hopscotch, hopping from one decision to the next, with little regard for the squares they're leaving behind. This impulsive behavior isn't limited to just life-altering decisions. It can be as mundane as an impromptu shopping spree, or as significant as abruptly walking out of a job. The common thread is the lack of foresight, the disregard for consequences. It's a leap first, look later approach. Parallel to this impulsivity is a strong streak of irresponsibility. Sociopaths often evade accountability for their actions. If things go south, they're the first to pass the buck, to lay blame elsewhere. They're like Teflon, nothing sticks. This isn't because they're particularly adept at dodging consequences, rather, it's their indifference to them. This combination of impulsivity and irresponsibility can wreak havoc in their personal and professional lives. Relationships are strained, jobs are lost, and their credibility is often in tatters. But to the sociopath, these are mere collateral damage in their pursuit of immediate satisfaction. These traits, impulsivity and irresponsibility, they're not just disruptive, they're destructive, and yet they're just pieces of the puzzle. Impulsivity and irresponsibility can be disruptive, but there's one more trait we need to discuss. Finally, a key sign of a sociopath is a lack of guilt or remorse. Imagine a world where actions have no emotional consequences. For most of us, it's a chilling thought. But for sociopaths, it's just another Tuesday. They navigate through life without the emotional compass that most of us rely on, often leaving a trail of hurt and chaos in their wake. This lack of guilt or remorse is not just about failing to say sorry when they bump into you. It's deeper and far more pervasive. It's about a fundamental inability to feel regret for actions that harm others. If they lie, cheat, or steal, they don't lose sleep over it. If they hurt someone, they don't feel the sting of conscience that would typically accompany such actions. What's important to understand is that this isn't a choice. It's simply how their brain is wired. They don't feel guilt or remorse because they lack the capacity for it. It's as if the part of the brain responsible for these feelings is just missing. Now, you might be thinking, well, I've done things I'm not proud of and didn't feel guilty. It's crucial to distinguish between occasional lapses in judgment and a consistent pattern of remorseless behavior. We all make mistakes, but most of us feel regret when we realize we've hurt others. Sociopaths, on the other hand, don't have this emotional check and balance. Another important point to note is that this lack of guilt is not the same as a lack of fear of punishment. Sociopaths can understand consequences in a logical sense, but the emotional weight, the guilt of doing something harmful, simply doesn't register. These are just a few signs of sociopathy, but it's important to remember that only a professional can diagnose this disorder. Sociopathy is a complex condition that requires a thorough understanding of psychology. So, while these signs can give you an idea of what to look out for, they are not definitive proof. Always consult with a professional if you suspect someone might be a sociopath. Remember, while these signs can indicate sociopathy, they can also be present in other disorders or behaviors. It's crucial not to jump to conclusions based on observations alone. Sociopathy, like any mental health condition, requires a professional diagnosis. If you've recognized these traits in someone you know, it's essential to approach the situation with empathy and understanding. Encourage them to seek professional help. Remember, it's not about labeling or stigmatizing someone. It's about understanding their behavior and helping them navigate their life in a healthier way. It's also important to protect yourself. If you feel manipulated or harmed by someone exhibiting these behaviors, don't hesitate to seek support. Mental health professionals can provide guidance and resources to help you navigate these challenging situations. Knowledge is power. The more we understand about mental health, the better equipped we are to foster healthier relationships and communities. If you found this information helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this.